What's going on, guys? TymeStopper here, coming at you with my first impressions of the home base status report for February 20th, 2020, aka the patch notes. Now, I will leave a link to the home base status report in the video description down below if you would like to follow along or want to bookmark it for later. But before we do get into the video, of course, as always, I would like to remind you guys, I do stream over on Twitch every Monday through Friday, starting at around 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're looking for a group to play with and you're tired of searching in public lobbies, or you just want to hang out with some amazing Save the World players, I'll go ahead and leave a link to my Twitch channel in the video description down below as well. Now, let's jump into these patch notes. Now, first and foremost, we are going to be going over the top section here. The status report does say, it says, "What's up, commanders? We have a love storm incoming from Major Oswald. The new dancing quest line is in the game right now, and it does give you a ton of tickets and some heroes to pick up. We just completed the quest line over on twitch.tv, so if you want to go check that out, of course you can. Basically, it says Major Oswald will not allow home base to suffer at the hands of the enemy. The dreaded love storm. Operation Broken Heart begins. Basically, we've got Stoneheart Farah, a brand new ninja coming to the game. You can take a look at her right there. She's pretty dope looking. It says, "Leave love to the professionals, Stoneheart Farah." Her standard perk is going to be the Cupid's arrow. It says, on bow hit, arrows splinter, dealing 20% damage to 3 nearby targets. And then when she is in that commander slot, she's going to get the Cupid arrow plus. On bow hit, the arrow splinter, dealing 60% damage to 5 nearby targets. So our first bow hero, of course, you guys know they've been bringing out bows pretty heavy lately. And there is another one coming up a little bit later in the patch notes again today as well. We are going to skip over to the other hero, which is also coming to the game. This is Dashing Hawk. He's pretty cool looking, I must admit. That's why we did put him on the thing to the video today. Of course, it does have his standard perk of absolutely stunning. It says lefty and righty shots have a 37.5% chance to stun the target for 2 seconds. And when he is in commander, not only does he get that 37.5% chance to stun the target for 2 seconds, but additionally, lefty and righty is going to deal 100% increase in damage against those stun targets. So this is something that could be good, could be bad. It just kind of depends on how it works out. Maybe with the Happy Holidays team perk in there, we might be able to see some action. It also depends. You might be able to stun lock enemies with this, depending on how fast, because lefty and righty does shoot pretty fast, so we'll definitely be checking that out for sure. The next thing we want to talk about is War Games, guys. If you missed out on War Games when the birthday event was around, I loved War Games. It brought the community together. It was a great opportunity for everybody to hang out, have a good time. Some people looked at it a little bit differently. You know, it was a lot of AFK action and stuff like that. But you know me, I'm all about getting some rewards. So, you know, if I can get some rewards from it, I will. The nice thing is with the War Games coming back, there is also an opportunity to gain some of the banners that you may have missed if you didn't get them the first time around. There are 4 banners that are in the game right now that you can pick up in that War Game stuff. But basically it says the Oswald drills are back and in full effect. Revisit your Storm Shield base and test your defenses against some destructive and challenging simulations. Now, there are no new simulations for you guys wondering. These are all the same simulations that we had before. The big thing here is that we have event tickets back in War Games. Yes, that's right. Event tickets are back in War Games. Now, there's some bonuses out there the first time that you do the War Games that you'll get. I think we did maybe 3,000 tickets or so just off of the War Game Sims the first time through. So it is quite a bit of tickets. And then on top of that, you can continue doing War Games over and over and over and just keep stacking those tickets. And they're going to come into play in just a little bit. We're going to talk a little more about those tickets, but war games are back, guys. Next, we're going to be talking about the Love Song bow. This is the newest bow coming into Fortnite Save the World. It says, make the husk love struck with this new bow. Keeping the bow drawn past the max charge will fire an arrow that stuns the enemy for 10 seconds. I'm sorry. Read again. What? 10-second stun time. Now, listen, I'm not a huge bow guy, but that could be super OP with a bow hero and some of the right perks. This might actually be a pretty solid bow. It does say it doesn't affect bosses or enemies that have recently been love struck, but it doesn't say anything about mist monsters. So maybe we can stun a mist monster with it. We'll have to check it out when it comes. Now, this is going to be in the event store starting at February 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It does say until April 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm assuming that's going to be the end of the current season, because usually once something is in the event store, it stays in the event store for the whole season. So mark that date on your calendar. April 3rd may very well be the end of this season. I know we're just getting started, but it could be the end of it, just so that you know. Now, the next section we're going to talk a little bit about, it says lunar llamas are leaving soon. Now, this is fantastic news. I know everybody probably thought the lunar llamas were going to go away when dungeons went away and this update went away and everything else, but we still have some time left with these lunar llamas, and Epic has actually given us a pretty awesome heads up with this. So basically, it says that the event llamas, or the lunar llamas, are going to rotate out of the store in update 12.10. Now, we don't know when 12.10 is going to hit. Probably, well, we know it's going to be at least a week. Could be 2 weeks. We're not sure, but we know we should at least have another week. So if there were weapons or heroes that are in that current llama set, the Chinese New Year heroes, or the dragon weapons that you didn't get, this is a great opportunity to go ahead and pick those up still. It does, however, tell us that both the lunar llama and the new llama are going to cost 500 tickets. So we know we're getting a new llama with the 12.10 update, and we know that we can start stacking those tickets right now. Did anyone say war games? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So you guys will be able to start stacking tickets if you've already gotten everything you want out of the lunar llamas, and you're like, listen, I'm good. I want to be prepared for that next llama. They haven't told us what it is, but you can start saving up those tickets right now. And I'll tell you, we only did the War Game Sims over on the stream today and the Questline, and got around 5,000 tickets between the two, and that's without doing any extra missions or anything like that. So you can really start stacking some tickets up for sure. Next section we're going to talk about is going to be General's Boot Camp. It says the storm is starting to throw some new mixes of enemy waves at us. Commanders, I fully expect each of you to embark to have varied husk encounters going forward. Now, I will tell you, at first I was a little concerned that this might mean for all those evil jail builders out there that maybe jail builds are going away. I will tell you, we did try jail building 1 or 2 missions. It did spawn some lobbers on the first wave, 3 or 4. Once we shot those, nothing else spawned. I did get some reports on stream of some other stuff happening, but I didn't personally have that happen. We ran 2 of them, shot the 3 or 4 lobbers. The lobbers did not respawn. They spawned regular enemies. They went in the jail just fine. We do know that there are nurse husks back. If you guys remember, during the Fortnitemares, we had the nurse husks that were out there. They were kind of healing themselves, doing some wacky stuff. The nurse husks are back, and I will tell you, the bee bug is back in the form of the nurse husk. I had several times where I was in a cloud from the nurse husk throwing their projectile lobber at me. I would take damage, I would go out of the cloud, and I would just continue to take damage. It happened on more than one occasion. So just be aware of that. It looks like that ugly, nasty bug is back. Of course, for you guys that don't know, the bee bug basically happened where, you know, if you took damage from a beehive, it just continued until you died, or you used adrenaline rush. So that is another way to kind of fix the bug. But Hopefully they'll get that fixed sooner rather than later. It took them way too long to get the beehive bug fixed, so I'm hoping this one doesn't linger around for very long. Now, it also says here that smashers, you can't live with them. Definitely can't live without them. It seems like they aren't charging until they're closer to our structures. Best use that to our advantage. You know, when they made the smasher change, the smashers were charging from a much further direction than we'd ever seen before. This is saying that they're going to reduce that. I haven't had an opportunity to test this yet to see if it's a long distance or what it is. There are some reports out there of, you know, maybe it decreased it by about 2 tiles. So it used to be 6, maybe it's 4 now. But again, I didn't do that, so I don't want you to take my word for it. Test it out yourself or come check it out. I'm sure we'll be testing it on stream tomorrow as well, so you can come check it out there. Now, it also says, finally, some good news. Field reports show that sploders are running low on propane and their blasts are taking less damage to our structures. So basically, you know, with the update to the meta change update to the traps, sploders started doing damage. When they got down to about 30%, they would blow up automatically and deal damage to our structures. So this is basically saying that we're not going to have that problem as much. They were doing about 75% damage to a structure, meaning like if I have a tier 3 metal floor and a sploder blows up, he would deal about 75% damage to that piece of metal. Only one. Now they've reduced it. It's doing about 50% damage to it, so certainly less. But they still will do damage to your structure, so be aware of that. Make sure you're using the right traps and the right strategies when you're building out your tunnels. Now, moving on over to Clips Corner. With Clips Corner, it says some of our schematics need some major tune-ups, so time to fire up the Forge. There are a ton of weapons that we're going to talk about here. It says we made some serious enhancements to many ranged weapons, most notably shotguns, snipers, bows, grenade launchers, and some of the older weapons. So for you guys that thought we had all these doo-doo weapons, you know, that were just terrible, you weren't using perk up or whatever, we now have those weapons being buffed across the board, it looks like. They should be much more powerful. Haven't had an opportunity to test a whole lot of them yet. Obviously, it's going to be a ton of them that we need to check out. So stay tuned for a later video where we hopefully can go through some of that. Now, it also says, speaking of bows, I've tightened their strings so the projectile should travel faster than ever. I'm making some further adjustments to the boom bow, vacuum tube bow, and Vendor Tech Seeker bow. So the 2 new bows that came out not too long ago, and then, of course, the boom bow, which everybody loves. So it says the boom bow was recalibrated to have a lower base impact, damage, and projectile speed, but now deals even higher damage when fully charged, so make them count. So basically, we're going to get more damage out of each hit if the hit is fully charged. So you won't be able to necessarily spam it as much. You're going to want more direct hits to do more damage. The vacuum tube bow now triggers lightning on hit. So rather than elimination, and has a longer lightning range. Only 2 targets, no problem. The lightning is going to bounce back and forth multiple times between the targets as long as they're in range. So before, it would bounce from one target to another and be done. Now, if the 2 targets are next to each other, as long as they're still alive and in range, the lightning is going to bounce back and forth multiple times between the 2, doing a little bit more damage each time. It says also, additionally, we've had some small impact changes made to the retro sci-fi assault weapon, the Neon LMG, the Neon Assault, the Retro Sci-Fi Pistol, Titanium Instrument Death, and Zap Zap. It says, fear not, I've made them eligible for a reset in case the slight impact duration or reduction isn't your style. Of course, as usual, whenever they change a weapon or a schematic or something like that, they do give us an opportunity to reset the schematic, you know, so that if you don't like the changes, you can fix it back to normal, get all your, you know, Evo mats and everything else that you used to perk it up originally. Now, the next thing is pretty big. It says, finally, utility perk slots on weapons. So on most weapons or older weapons, that second perk slot a lot of times was fixed to having only reload, mag size, durability, stability, those type of things. It says it can now be rolled to damage if you want. Now, I can only imagine how much damage you can get with some of these weapons. Now, on weapons that are meant to have reload, you'll probably still end up keeping reload on some of them, but some weapons, if you put a damage perk on there, it's going to do so much damage, it really won't matter. It's going to shred those husks, those mist monsters, even smashers, because by putting that damage on there, it's going to seriously buff the amount of damage. So I would certainly play around with some weapons, take a look at what you got. You know, you could come up with some really awesome combo. In the next section, we're going to talk a little bit about trap changes. We knew going into this, they had talked to us. They said they were going to make some changes to the traps and things like that. So this says, let's move on to those underperforming traps. I've enhanced the damage about every trap with the exception of gas and broadsides. So these were already extremely powerful, and they're seeing a minor reduction. Now, from what I saw on stream, there really wasn't a reduction to gas traps and broadsides. It was more like they got left behind, right? So if you had gas traps and broadsides up here and you had every other trap right here, by raising those other traps up, you basically close that gap between the two. So it's not necessarily that they nerfed the gas trap or the broadside. They just made everything that much better. And they did it through a couple different ways. First off, they increased the amount of damage that's being output, but they also changed all of the nature traps. So the wall dynamo, the ceiling electric field, and the ceiling zapper, all to give you the option to now put energy damage on them, which makes them so much more useful in missions. Only having them as nature before basically meant that really they only became effective in a water storm. But now that you put energy on them, yeah, they're going to take a little more damage in a water storm, but they're going to deal more damage throughout. They also buffed the ceiling drop traps, and I gotta tell you, these things are hilarious now. If you haven't seen one of the ceiling drop traps in action lately, they're ridiculous. The tires drop, they bounce off the ground several times, and the tires are huge. They're like people size now when they're bouncing off the ground. They're not super small tires anymore. These things are huge. So we know that tire traps don't necessarily set off propanes, so they might be a new meta moving into some of these trap tunnels, because if they're going to bounce around in the trap tunnel and we make them damage and reload, they might be doing some serious damage in an endurance base, you know, pretty soon coming to you. We'll have to take a look. We'll play around with it in our endurance base and stuff like that to see what happens. The anti-air trap was lacking some proper range. They have increased it with some range increasing perks. So they did add the ability to increase the range on the anti-air traps, which of course is a welcome addition. Now maybe you don't need to put as many of them up, being that they are taking quartz crystal, and we know how hard it is to get a hold of quartz crystal. So this can only be a positive change for everyone around there. Also, with trap changes, one thing they don't mention in here, but I do want to make a note of, is that they did add sound walls and tar traps to not only the basic llama sets. So every day when you go in, you can get your upgrade llama and your other llamas. You'll be able to get tar traps and sound walls in them now. You're also able to research them. So you can go to the collection book, research them with Flux. So if you didn't have those traps, I would highly recommend picking up the legendary versions of each of them. And they added some additional versions. So the sound wall is now available in uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. And the tar pit is available in rare, epic, and legendary as well. So awesome news for you guys that might have missed out on the tar trap during the Dino event, or maybe missed out on the sound wall during Hit the Road. I know it wasn't everybody's favorite event. Now you can pick those up, because the tar trap is crucial now, because it's one of the only ways that you can stop a charging smasher. And then of course the sound walls, they're crucial in basically getting those propane huskies to drop the propane so that it doesn't blow up in your tunnels. So go check those out. Now in the next section, we're going to talk a little bit about the director's update. It says, well, commanders, I've had some time to think. You know, what if the HUD from Dungeons was basically in other missions? So they basically have taken the HUD that is in both BR and Dungeons and brought it to the main Save the World game. Now, there's several notes I want to talk about with this. Mostly, the HUD is good, and there's some bad with it. Okay, like I mean, this has really kind of gotten the community divided already. I try to see the good side of it. The bad side of it, I think, is things that they probably just overlook and they can very easily fixed. So, for example, I love the fact that you can now see how much ammo your weapon has before reloading. For you guys that also play BR, you know that when you do the ADS, the aiming down sight, you can see below the reticle on the bottom right-hand corner how many bullets are left in your gun, as well as on weapons that overheat. Now you can see whether or not the weapon is going to overheat, so you know whether you need to reload it or how far away you are from reloading it. That is awesome. A very, very welcome addition. So I love that. There are a couple things I think that they probably overlooked when they brought the HUD in, because it's stuff that they didn't exist in BR, and it wasn't stuff that we needed in dungeons. Those things are, we can't see how much blue glow our teammates currently have. So if you're in a mission that needs blue glow, you can't see how much your teammates have. You can only see how much you have. We cannot see how much space you have in your backpack. So the backpack icon that's on the right hand side, it doesn't show you, you know, I have 210 out of 250 slots full. The only way to see it is to actually go into it. You also currently cannot see what hero someone else is playing, like what hero class they're playing. So once you load into the mission, you have everybody's stuff on the top left-hand side. You will not be able to see, like, are they playing an Outlander, a Constructor, etc., etc. I personally don't have a problem with that. I also understand why the community would have a problem with it. I would hope that they would add some kind of indicator just letting us know, you know, what class they have at least, and maybe that's enough. But I can certainly understand where the rest of the community comes at from that. Now, the other thing that some people are a little upset about is weapon durability. So you can now only see your durability on a weapon when it gets down to about 30%. Other than that, when you have a weapon in your hotbar, it basically just shows nothing for durability. Once you get down 30%, it's going to show you where it's at, essentially. You also can't see how many survivors have been saved in the mission. As you guys know, most missions, you can find 5 or 6 survivors. Right now, you can't see how many survivors are currently have been saved. It does pop up when someone saves a survivor for a brief second, but if you're not watching for it, you can't just look up there and see, oh yeah, so-and-so picked up 3 survivors. I can go find 2 more. You really have no idea. That's really going to hurt folks that are working on that 10,000 survivor banner. You know, personally, I've already gotten it done, so it's not a big deal for me, but I can certainly understand, you know, why that would be a problem for some other people. So I'm sure that there's probably some other things. One thing to make note of, there are some new options when it comes to the HUD as well. So if you go into your options menu and you go to where the HUD is, and you take a look at all those options you can turn on or off, I would highly recommend you scroll all the way to the very, very bottom one and turn on the ability to see HP and shield numbers. So if you look right now at your HUD, by default, your health bar does not show any kind of numbers. But that last option on the HUD number is going to give you the option to turn those numbers back on, so you can take a look at that. You can decide whether you want it or not. I would say play around with it. The HUD is much bigger than it was before, so you may need to shrink some things down, whereas before it wasn't a big deal. But play around with it. Give it the fair opportunity that it deserves. You know, don't just write it off because you hate one thing on it or whatever. I think it's a positive direction in the game. I think that by them saying, okay, we are willing to bring some stuff from BR over to Save the World because we know it works, because we know that these things work better. In the long run, I think it's only going to help the development of Save the World, because if it's developed for BR and we can use it, that's less development time that we have to spend for Save the World on dumb things, and we can spend them on the stuff that you guys want, like content. God knows everybody wants more content. Now, I went on way too long about that, so let's go on to bug fixes, guys. So bug fixes, for you guys that don't know, there is a Trello for Fortnite that kind of keeps a list of all the different stuff. You can see some of the bug fixes here. We have covered some of them. The only ones I didn't really cover so far are, of course, with Endurance. They talked about Ramp and Beach North having overlapping spawns. that has been removed in the Twine SSD. I haven't been in mine yet to double check it, but I have heard that that has been removed. Basically, the way they did that is that that amp will no longer be attacked from the north ever, basically eliminating those overlapping spawns. So that's awesome. You know, maybe, you know, give a little bit of relief to Twine Endurance for folks that haven't done it yet, or for people that are working on their SSDs and things like that. Another thing to note here is the Neon Sniper no longer has the distorted scope when aiming down sights. You know, for you guys that have been around for a while, you know, a couple patches ago, we had an issue where anytime you aim down sights, you couldn't see anything. Then they fixed it. But for some reason, the Neon Sniper had like this really fuzzy looking thing to it. So it looks like they have fixed that. I did confirm that in the game. Everything looks A-okay with that. And the big thing, okay, the big thing that is not in this list right here, okay, I don't care about any of this other stuff. I don't care that crafting materials are being returned from defender pads. I don't care about weak spots. I don't care about A buttons working correctly when you're trying to emote. That sounds ridiculous. I care that they finally have fixed the friends list. I'm going to say it again. They finally fixed the friends list. No more clicking on a name and then it goes back to the beginning. Clicking on a name, it goes back to the beginning. Clicking on a name. Oh my God. We have waited way too long for them to fix this. I am so excited. It makes me want to go play the game even more with some AFK war games, but I digress. Guys, they fixed the friends list. That is freaking awesome. Now, I will say that we have noticed some other bugs and things like that that have popped up, you know, due to this update. You know, if you're following their Twitter or whatnot, you can always go check those out. If you're not following their Twitter, by the way, you can always go check out our Discord, which I'll leave a link to the Discord server in the video description down below. But basically, there's a channel in the Discord server which their Twitter feeds into. So you can always check out their Twitter there. If you don't have Twitter yourself and don't want Twitter, you can check it out in the Discord server. But it has all the updates from there. But there's some problems with being able to pick up some items right now. I've seen reports of, and then of course we did talk about the bee bug. But guys, that's about it for the patch notes. A ton of stuff has been added, updated to the game. I think it's only positive. We're definitely moving in the right direction. Sure, there's things that could be better. Absolutely. But you know what? At the end of the day, it looks like they're moving in the right direction. I can't complain about it. So all good stuff here from me. I'm happy. You know, I'd like to get some more content. We know that there's going to be some more stuff coming up. Generally on the 12.0, like the 0.0 update, we don't get all the big stuff. We generally get most of the big stuff on a later update, 0.1, 0.2, whatever, for Save the World. That's perfectly fine. I certainly understand that. Again, guys, that's about it for me. I do want to thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And of course, leave a like on the video if you did like it, and consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you know when my videos go live for you. And guys, let me know down in the comments below what changes you are most excited about from this. I'd really like to hear from you guys, or anything that maybe you guys have found that isn't in this list of patch notes, or anything that I've gone over today. But again, that's about it from me, guys. Again, I do want to thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And of course, until next time, as always, be good.